And then with the Mets, I guess we could do a little bit more of a post-mortem on the season. I think it was a little fresh the last time I dove into it. So we'll look at the end of the season recap from Billy Epler and Buck Showalter maybe. But more importantly, we'll take a look at the Major League Baseball playoffs and the insanity that is going on with the MLB postseason. Right now, game 1 of the NLCS, Phillies Padres going on. We all saw that coming, right? If you're a Dodgers fan, what are you feeling? If you're a Braves fan, what are you feeling? So we'll go over all that and more. We'll briefly talk about the Mets. I'll try and keep it brief. Not a whole lot to say. After everything that's gone on, I just watched the Phillies beat the Padres in game 1 of the NLCS in San Diego. So if historical data trends is anything to pay attention to and anything to subscribe to, seems like the Phillies are going to go to the World Series. Sucks. I was glad when they beat the Cardinals. I was actually glad when they beat the Cardinals. There, I said it. I was actually glad when they beat the Braves. There, I said it. Not so great if they beat the Padres. I just don't want them in the World Series at all. Like I've said, my pick after the Padres beat us was like, Padres need to go to the World Series. I don't want to see the Dodgers in the World Series. I do not want to see the Braves in the World Series. I for sure don't want to see the Phillies back in the World Series. So Padres or bust. And they just lost game 1 at home. Got shut out, I think 2-0. But this is where we are. Phillies, Padres. I think it's the first time 2 teams, Major League Baseball teams, have faced off in the championship series with less than 90 wins each in the regular season. I think it's the first time that's happened. So that just goes to show you just how out of sorts and just how much of an anomaly this postseason has been. And it led me to, after the Braves lost to the Phillies and after the Dodgers lost to the Padres, a lot of people are calling for, a lot of people, I mean, Braves fans and Dodgers fans and Mets fans to a certain degree are calling for a playoff reformat, where it's like, all right, this is obviously not working because the best teams aren't winning. It's like, and that's why we need to change everything, because the best teams are supposed to win. And I think that's the actual argument against the playoff reformat, is that that's what the Major League Baseball wants. Fucking chaos. They want chaos. So, and they got it. Phillies, Padres, NLCS, catch the fever. Oh boy. So, yeah. But it's still disheartening. And I don't know that more games, because I see a lot of people saying, well, the wild card, the LDS needs to be 7 games, like the LCS. The divisional series needs to be 7 games. It needs to be longer. And the wild card, 3 games, I guess, but it should be a best of 5. And it's like, but you were just saying that 162 regular season games is too many. And now you're saying that in addition to being very good in the regular season to make the playoffs, you now have to win even more games in the, it's just like, we're kind of, all right. I personally like the 3-5-7. I think that's fine. I don't think you need to get too much crazier than that. The 1-game wild card I couldn't handle it. And I don't know, and I think it is interesting how you can go 16-0 in the NFL regular season and lose in the wild card or the divisional round. And that's pretty gut wrenching. I think that hurts a lot, right? Likewise, NCAA tourney, March Madness. You can be like the number 1 seed in all the land, number 1 seed in your region, and then get upset. If you get upset by the 16 seed, it's like, that's loaded. It's going to be hard to live that down. That's tough. Winning 111 games? Is that what the Dodgers won? Getting the number 1 seed, getting a bye, and losing in a 5-game series to a team that you freaking dominated in the regular season. I have the numbers here. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm looking at, so those are the Mets home team splits. Okay, the Padres were 4-2 versus the Mets in the regular season. So I'm not and if you listen to my episodes previewing, looking at some of the postseason opponents we might face and who I'd rather face, I didn't want to face the Padres because we had a losing record. Seems like we just didn't have the number. They had our number. That scared me. And of course, that was proven correct, much to my chagrin. But they were 4-2 against us. They were 5-14 against the Dodgers. So as crappy as I feel as a Mets fan about a lost season after 100 wins is something, Buck Showalter and Billy Epler were talking about it in the postseason recap press conference, where it's like 100 wins is an amazing achievement. Like Billy Epler said, he's only done it once or twice. Buck Showalter, one of the most storied, long-running managers in baseball history, lots of games played, said he only had it once or twice. So incredible achievement. Glad it happened. It's nice to have that on our belt, but like not having a division title, not advancing in the postseason, losing in the opening round, like that's gonna sting for a while. That's gonna stick with me. You're pretty much always gonna look at that 1 win season and be like, what? What? So, and the Phillies were 8-11 versus Atlanta in the regular season. It's hard to care about the regular season anymore. It just really is. It's now like, I don't care if we win the division, just make the playoffs. It's literally just do what the Phillies did. Just win enough games to make the playoffs. And then it's all bets are off. All bets are off. It's all out the window. It's completely new, fresh, clean slate. That's essentially it. That's it. That's my MO heading forward, is like, I don't care if we sweep teams. I don't care if we win series. Just win enough games to make the playoffs. If that's 88 games, if that's 89 games, I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. I mean, we're 90-72 when we went to the World Series in 2015. In most years, that doesn't make the playoffs. So, and I think back to all those Mets teams in the 80s and early 90s where it was like they could win 100 some odd games and not even make the playoffs. Insane. I tweeted this poll: what's the most difficult championship to win in the core four sports? Stanley Cup, NBA Finals, Super Bowl, World Series, and by a large margin, it's the World Series. You can make the argument for the Stanley Cup and Super Bowl because there's an extremely physical, taxing sports. I would say the Stanley Cup is harder than the Super Bowl, only because Super Bowl you have like 16 games or 17 games, extremely physical, extremely, take a lot out of you. But like hockey, I would argue, also takes a ton out of you. And you have to do it for 80 some odd games in the regular season. So, and then no one voted for the NBA Finals, which just goes to show what, like, I don't know. So I would say World Series and Stanley Cup and then Super Bowl. But it's close between the Stanley Cup and the Super Bowl. But I just... they'll never shorten the season. I mean, and I said this last time, wouldn't it just make sense to have 82 games? It's the same amount of games as the NBA and NHL. I don't know that you're missing much. You can fill in the gap. Like there'll be less overlap with football, I would think. And you wouldn't run into you'd still have it over the summer when there's not a whole lot of sports going on. That July, August would be still intact. It's just like April baseball is so meaningless. And like, not to get like nihilistic, but it is so freaking meaningless to have April baseball. I would say even most of May baseball. I decided to I know we did a post-mortem on the Mets season last episode, but I wasn't in the mood to do more of a deep dive, but taking a look at like the splits, like the win-loss splits and all that, 40% of our wins came against the Marlins, Nationals, and Phillies. 13-6 for versus the Marlins, 14-5 versus the Phillies, 14-6 versus the Nationals. We were 41-17 against those three teams. But you would switch seasons with the Phillies in a freaking instant, dude. 10-2 in extra innings games, sweet. 21-15 in one-run games, pretty good. And then 9-11 in interleague games, which I guess shouldn't bother me, but does. I don't know why. I guess it's because like if we do get the World Series, like we're not going to win because we stink against AL teams for some reason. But I can see why, I don't think the manager is going to put a lot of weight on those games and try to win all those games like he would in a divisional opponent or even a National League opponent. Our records versus playoff teams. 4-3 versus the Dodgers, 9-10 versus the Braves, 5-2 versus the Cardinals, 2-4 versus the Padres, 14-5 versus the Phillies. So we were 34-24 versus National League playoff teams in the regular season. But if you take away Philly, we were 20-19. And honestly, the Padres were the worst case scenario. I mean, you look at like we could have faced any other team, and I would have had more confidence in us winning the series. Phillies 4-3 versus the Cardinals in the regular season and 4-3 versus the Padres. So I guess it shouldn't be that shocking or surprising that they beat the Cardinals. And now that they're up one game against the Padres, it's like you wouldn't be that shocked if they beat the Padres. We were pretty bad against the AL playoff teams. 0-5 versus the Astros, 2-2 against the Yankees, 1-2 versus the Mariners, 3-9 total. We didn't play the Guardians, Rays, or Blue Jays. So I don't know. I don't think we need to change the playoffs. I would love to have less regular season games because we put ourselves through hell all the way up until the final friggin' game of the season. For what? We were out. We were done after less than a week. After a weekend, we were done. And that's why baseball and the World Series is the hardest thing to do in professional sports. Has to be. To win enough games so that you make the playoffs and then make a run in the postseason, it's the most difficult by far. But if anything, if what I've learned, and I might have said this last episode, is like, hey, maybe Francisco Lindor doesn't have to play 160 games in a season or 150 plus games in a season. Maybe Pete Alonso doesn't have to play 150 plus games in a season. I mean, Greg, good for you. I'm happy. But like, maybe this is the reason why we hit a wall towards the end of the season, because we had guys playing too many games where they didn't need to. And we were pushing too hard to win this division. And ultimately, I think that might have cost us. My 2 cents. Take it or leave it. You most likely will not take it. And then I'll finish with this. I came out across this Reddit post. It was titled, the title was 85 Vibes. And it says, yeah, the end of the year sucked, but for the first time in a long time, watching Mets baseball was fun. Personally, I'm feeling 1985 vibes again. 84 was a nice start after a decade of embarrassment, but 85 was set to be exciting with Gary Carter's game-winning homer, the extras off the cards in Game 1. Great season until we went to St. Louis towards the end, and we just weren't ready. We won 98 games, but the Cards won more. The same thing this time around, but we got 3 extras with the wild card. Had a great season after years of irrelevance and then came up short. Let's see how the team responds and what management does. 2022 could be just like 1985 and a springboard for a dominant next season. I sure hope so, but again, my concerns go back to, if you're comparing this team versus that team, you had Doc Gooden was like, what, 21, 22 in 86? I think he was our number 1. Right now, our number 1 and number 2 are on the bad side of 35, looking at 40. And do they still have games where they look elite? Hell yeah, dude. Most of the games. But you have to worry. And I don't think we definitely didn't overexert them either in the regular season. I don't think. I think they were on pitch counts. Buck did everything he could to manage them throughout the season, but I think that's what just happens a lot of the time. And so that's why I don't feel as great going into next season with them as our 1 and 2. Yes, they've been a 1 and 2 every other season just about, but I don't know that you can confidently say that this is our 1 and 2 heading into 2023. So I am hopeful. I do think we'll make the playoffs next year, but it's like, let's just... Obviously, don't want to relax too much. You don't want to coast too much, but let's not press as much. Let's give, Alonso and Lindor a rest day every week. And I don't care that they're young and you think that they can do it. Well, it gives them a time to decompress so that they're getting 2 days off a week. And I, honest to God, think it will pay off come end of September and October in the postseason. I really do. Who would you rather have, Edwin Diaz or Jacob deGrom? At this point, I'd have to say Edwin Diaz. He's younger. He looks like this doesn't look like a fluke. He did it over the course of an entire season. It looks like he's hit his stride. It looks like, he could be our closer for the next 3 to 5 seasons. And that's really, if you think about it, the window that Steve Cohen was looking at in terms of winning a championship. So I think you put your money to Edwin Diaz. Now they're definitely all, KFC from Barstool was saying that like you owe Jacob deGrom back pay. And so that's why giving him, that $40+ million, $43 million, even $50 million a year is payment for his past accomplishments, which is like, I hate doing that, but is there another way we can go about that? It would take a certain special kind of player, certain kind of player personality to come into that rotation and say, okay, I'm the lowest paid of this top 3, but I'm the number 1. Like, it's like, hopefully you can look past that and be like, okay, this is an opportunity to win a World Series. So if you're trying to like filter out and sort through all the free agent pitchers that might be available and out there, of which I don't think there's a ton. It seems like there's a lot of older pitchers in the free agency market this upcoming offseason. You'd have to look at a guy that hasn't won a ring yet and is like, this is my best chance to win a ring. And I don't need to make what Scherzer and DeGrom are making. And if I really think about it, they're making that because of what they've done in the past. So like I can get to that level if I just win this World Series now. I don't know if are there anyone that fit the bill. I don't know. I don't think so. Carlos Rodon? I don't know. So, and judging by what Epler and Buck are saying, it's like there aren't like huge moves on the horizon. I don't think they're going to make huge moves. They feel like they have everything they need in that clubhouse. Maybe it's just like 1 or 2 tweaks, but it's not going to be any big splashes. But that could be a smokescreen to make way to sign Aaron Judge, which I've come around on. I think part of me was like, oh, but what about so and so and so and so? It's just like he like automatically gets you a chunk of wins if he stays healthy, so that you don't have to rely on Starling Marte as much. Listen, I like that we have Starling Marte. He makes us better when he's healthy. I don't know that he's going to stay healthy. So it would just be nice to have insurance, Starling Marte insurance, and that comes in the form of Aaron Judge. It gives you a little more flexibility with the lineup and the rosters, and it just makes your team so much better. So yeah, I'm fully on board with it. And I know they've said repeatedly, like, we're not going to spend like drunken sailors. We're not going to like go way over the luxury tax and all this other stuff, that threshold. But he can smell it, can't you? He can taste it. If we have all the parts here, and maybe we are just one player away, when you go for it, I know, I mean, he's a Mets fan. I think if I'm in that position, I go for it and say, fuck it. Like, how long have we been waiting for this opportunity? How long will it be before we get this opportunity again? No. But then you look at the Phillies and you're like, I don't know what's happening anymore. So the best laid plans. Am I right? Am I right? Thanks so much for listening to this episode and for watching this episode. And we'll talk to you next week, huh? Hey, let's do this again. You free next week? Let's do it again. Adios, muchachos.